Being a class based on conflict and reconciliation, I looked into my interests of sports, which would be football over in Scotland. And the two teams over there are the Celtics and the Rangers. Celtics being Catholics, Rangers being Protestant. The rivalry between the Celtics and the Rangers really embodies the Scottish culture and has contributed to the political, social, and religious division between the Catholics and the Protestants. It felt logical to start in Glasgow for interviewing because that's where both the teams play and have stadiums at. Knowing that the conflict contributed to those three things, I wanted to ask firsthand if people thought that they actually did. Ross Hutton was an activist in the Yes campaign for the Scotland independence vote, and he was interested in football, so I thought he'd be a good candidate to ask. Is there a correlation with politics and sports here?
Yes, I think there is. The Scottish National Party passed a law in 2012 which prohibited the sectarian singing of songs at football matches. Now, big part to play in that, and I think it was called one of the best Commonwealth Games ever, and I think that just speaks for itself. I think that shows the positive impact that politics can play in sport. If under the right leadership and stewardship, that sport can bring people together.
Yeah. Looking at also the conflict between the Rangers and the Celtics and the rioting that's been involved with their games,
I think it is a big issue, but I can't get my head around it. People, sectarian people in football, it's a minority. I have to stress that is a minority. They want to cause trouble and sing sectarian songs. It's got nothing to do with football. Like religion had Rangers fans singing F the Pope. I don't really think the Pope cares about Scottish football, to be honest. I don't know why he's getting brought into it. But in recent years, with what's happened to Rangers and Rangers being demoted into the lower leagues, there's been only one Rangers-Celtic match in the last 3 years. And there was a bit of trouble at it. Not a lot, but there was a bit of trouble, and I think it's an issue that does have to be addressed. So single-minded and so stupid to believe that all Rangers fans are bad, or all Celtic fans are bad. And it's an issue that we do need to try and address.
Ross made a really good point about how sports are good under the right leadership, but also that there are stupid people out there that are still rioting. And Walter goes in on some historical detail on that.
Years ago, it was all kind of religious oriented. Rangers were here, Celtic was here, but Celtic was started up by from City, a brother, they call him a brother, and he started up in the East End of Glasgow for the poor, a wee football club, and then it grew and it grew and it grew, and eventually they bought Celtic Park. So Celtic Park was for the Catholics. Rangers were the Rangers were started up by
The Protestants?
From Belfast. What they call the Orange Order. The football players have got to watch what comes out of their mouth and their behaviour patterns. It doesn't matter who they're playing for. That was Mohammedanism, Protestants. It's football. Leave it all year. She likes a snake. A snake gives out. A snake discards its skin. Or the surplus. The football players need to discard all the surplus.
Really liked what Walter had to say about the football players just having to shed their skin and just get on with it and play football. I think that's one big step that everyone has to do in this process of reconciliation. This next interview is also within Glasgow, and this is with Ken Fife and Neil Harding. Neil did not want to be videotaped, and he is the one that is talking at the end. And I go ahead and ask about the conflict between the Celtics and Rangers with Ken Fife.
That's a constantly changing situation. It used to be a quite considerable tension between the two sectors. But football itself has changed. We're now employing foreign players, of whether they are believers, non-believers, etc. And so that has changed, and also as a result of that, the support has changed. Football fans now want to see high-performing teams. They want winning teams, and they will support that. They're looking for success as a football team, and so the divisions between Rangers and Celtic are, as time progresses, diminishing. Rangers overspent and went into administration. Because of that, they were relegated 2 leagues, and so the division between Celtic and Rangers, they no longer do they play each other because they're in different leagues. And Rangers have got to get back into that. So just now, there's very little tension between the football teams, and it is diminishing as the years progress. In the Industrial Relations Act, there's so many, we're moving forward all the time, so these type of prejudices are not being permitted in companies. So a foreman couldn't do that now, because they go through recruiting, human relations departments, recruit people, and
it couldn't formally happen.
It couldn't formally happen.
You just need to ask what school did you go to, and because in Scotland there is a segregation of schooling. So there's denominational Roman Catholic schooling and there's non-denominational schooling where everybody else goes, and say, where did you go to school? And they said, oh, I went to St Paul's, or I went to Our Lady of whatever, or then you know if somebody was a Catholic or Protestant, and you make your leading decision just by seeing what school they went to. So you're right, it's illegal and all that, and I don't think it happens much. But honestly, all the Jannies, they were all Protestant, no Catholics. What school did you go to? So I agree, it's an awful lot less, but in areas it's still very, very strong, and really, I see, difficult in pockets. But I would be surprised in your time here if you came across anything that you thought, well, that's just from being around about in the town.
So it's strong in Northern Ireland, and because of our association with Northern Ireland, it spills over into here.
One thing Ken Fife says is that the problem is diminishing, which is interesting because a lot of the other interviews would like to disagree with that. And the next interview that I have is with David Sinclair.
And things like, is there like an underlying meaning behind there?
Well, there was. When Celtics was started by a Catholic priest as a way of giving kids on the street something to do, but it was always intended at the beginning that it should be predominantly, if not completely, a Catholic team, a club. And whether there's a kind of sectarian issue in politics is a much more difficult thing, and I think while there certainly was, it's much less than it was. And in sport now, with the internationalisation of football and foreign players, I mean, the Rangers have had Catholic players now for some time, and had an Italian Catholic captain at one time. Now, so not all the supporters thought that was a good thing, but it's certainly come a long way.
David and Ken's idea of the football conflict are definitely the same in the idea that the international playing is making it less of a political problem, more about football. The last interview I have in Glasgow was the nephew of my host family, Alistair Dunn.
I'm a big football supporter.
Yeah.
I never have been, but it's very clear to anyone who lives here, like, quite what an impact Celtic and Rangers have had on dividing the people of Scotland, like especially Glasgow. Like the rivalry has been amplified by a divide between Protestants and Catholics, and a lot of that is tied up with unionism and the monarchy or Rangers, and you know, that's a very much a British unionist attitude. And then there's Celtic, which is a more sort of Republic of Ireland thing. It's like separatist, Catholic. So yeah, I think like that's where it stems from. What it really amounts to is just hooliganism and just violence. And, division, an excuse for fighting. I think as time goes on, the conflict goes less and less. Certainly in the past few years, the fighting has decreased a lot. Like.
Again, another person from Glasgow said the conflict is decreasing. And the next interview is from Roddy Pattinson in Edinburgh.
The Rangers-Celtic conflict is very much a west coast of Scotland thing. I have to declare that I'm from the east coast of Scotland and I live near the east coast of Scotland, so I can sort of look at it from outside. It's primarily, based on religious bigotry and not accepting another person's point of view, and hate being manufactured out of that disagreement and refusal to see someone else's point of view. And I know that both teams are trying hard to have programs in place where they're trying to get rid of this sectarian, bigoted element and trying to educate supporters and young people, potential adult supporters of the future, that this really isn't a very good way to behave, and doesn't portray neither Celtic nor Rangers nor Scotland in a very good light.
It's nice to know that there are programs in place to get rid of the sectarianism that is taking place. And the next person that I am interviewing is Evan Fulton.
I don't think the conflict between the two sides is a political one.
Okay.
I mean, certainly not now. There might have been historical, there might have been times back in history when it would have been, but I don't think it's primarily affected by politics now, certainly. The divisions between Catholic and Protestants tend to, so far as I can make out, tend to be among people from sort of poorer backgrounds. You won't find it in the middle or upper classes particularly.
Okay.
Now,
right.
I don't think, or at least not so strongly, or not so visibly. 20 years or so, things have got a lot better.
Yeah.
It's partly to do with, I think, the decline of the importance of Christianity among younger people in Britain as well. I think it's got quite a lot to do with it. I think that's probably the main reason, actually.
That was interesting how he said that it's more on the pure family lines, or not the upper or middle class, that have the conflicts. And this last interview is with Mark Maynard.
Kind of known conflict between them is pretty old standing, pretty powerful stuff, and I think that having a sports team that represents your kind of religion is pretty bad stuff in so many ways, but it makes for a good game. I think it's a normal thing. I don't think it's a good thing that it goes to a point where people die. People, if you're wearing a green and white hooped scarf, you can get attacked in the street. I think that's bad. Rangers are in a lower league, but they've still got huge support. As soon as they get back there, I think it will be even more. The first kind of games when they're both back in the top division are just going to hit it off big time, because it's almost like that pent up waiting for something to happen again.
Overall, I feel like the conflict is deteriorating as time progresses and the game turns into more of an international sport and less of the purebred Catholic versus Protestant issue that they had in the past related to the Rangers and Celtics. I also think that having the troubles over and past for over a while now, it's just celebrating the 100-year parade in Belfast, that education is a key component in stopping a conflict of this stature. But with all things though, race in America, genocide, and the recurring issues that we have as human beings, so there will always be conflict in everything that we do. So I just hope that in the future it's just strictly competition between the football teams and nothing political or underlying.